Life in ancient Egypt followed certain rhythms. The Nile flooded, bringing life. The sun rose, bringing warmth. But then something new arrived, something terrifying, the fourth plague. It was not a subtle warning, it was an invasion. Wild animals, appearing as if from nowhere, suddenly filled the land. Scripture tells us they swarmed everywhere. Imagine your home, your streets, your sacred places overrun. This was not a natural event, this was a message, powerful and raw. The divine hand was making itself known, and it chose chaos as its voice, disrupting the very fabric of Egyptian life. This was an unprecedented terror, a sign that the world as they knew it was being turned upside down by a power they did not understand. The impact on daily existence was immediate and profound. Homes, once sanctuaries of peace and family, became traps filled with unknown dangers. People were scared, their routines shattered. The noise alone must have been deafening, a constant chorus of snarls, howls and growls. The streets of their proud cities, usually bustling with commerce and daily life, were now perilous pathways. It was messy, it was unsafe. Sleep offered no escape, as fear was a constant companion. How could anyone work? How could anyone live with wildness unleashed in their very midst? The order of their civilization crumbled under this relentless, untamed pressure. Daily life became a struggle for basic safety and sanity. What kind of creatures were they? The texts don't always give us a precise list, but we can imagine. Lions, perhaps, where children once played. Wolves stalking the temple courtyards, their eyes glinting in the shadows. Bears, creatures of the wild, now rummaging through granaries. These were not the revered animal deities the Egyptians worshipped. These were instruments of a judgment they could not comprehend. The psychological burden must have been immense. Their own gods, often depicted with animal forms, seemed utterly silent, completely powerless against this tide of invading beasts. It was a stark demonstration that the familiar spiritual order was being challenged by something far greater and more elemental. And Pharaoh, the ruler of this mighty, sophisticated empire, he had been warned. Moses and Aaron had stood before him delivering the divine ultimatum. Perhaps he dismissed them, confident in his own power, in the strength of his gods. But then the animals came. His people suffered. His kingdom was thrown into turmoil. Yet Pharaoh's heart, as the story tells us, remained hard. He would not yield. He would not let the Israelites go. Was it pride that blinded him? A stubborn refusal to bow before the God of a captive people? Or was there something deeper at play, a divine hardening for a purpose yet to unfold? His refusal in the face of such chaos set the stage for even greater trials. After the terror of wild beasts, perhaps a fragile quiet settled, a fleeting hope that the worst was over, but the divine pressure did not relent. It simply shifted its focus. The fifth plague arrived, not with a roar, but with a creeping sickness. This time, the target was the very foundation of Egypt's wealth and sustenance, its livestock. A pestilence, swift and merciless, began to sweep through the herds. These animals were not mere possessions. They were the lifeblood of the nation. Their health was intrinsically linked to the prosperity and stability of the entire Egyptian kingdom, a kingdom built on agriculture and trade. This plague struck at the core of their material world. The scriptures list the animals afflicted. Cows, sheep, horses, donkeys, camels, all began to sicken and die. Consider their importance. Cows provided milk and meat, vital sources of nourishment. Sheep offered wool for clothing and meat for sustenance. Horses and donkeys were essential for labor, for ploughing the fertile fields that lined the great river Nile. They were crucial for transportation, pulling chariots for war, carrying goods for trade across vast distances. Camels were ships of the desert. To see these creatures, symbols of wealth and utility, fall ill and perish in vast numbers was to watch the nation's economic strength visibly drain away. The people who depended on them were filled with a growing dread. The devastation was immense. This was, as the ancient texts describe it, a big problem. Indeed, it was an economic catastrophe unfolding before their eyes. Fields might soon lie unplowed, harvests would diminish, trade routes, once vibrant with caravans, could falter. The mighty Egyptian war machine, reliant on horses, would be weakened. The loss was not just about money or resources, it was a deep blow to the Egyptian spirit, to their sense of security and order. Sadness spread throughout the land. People who had relied on these animals for their daily bread, for their very way of life, now faced an uncertain future. Their gods, many of whom were associated with these very animals, offered no protection, no cure. And Pharaoh, he saw the dying animals. He undoubtedly heard the reports of widespread economic distress from his officials. His people were suffering yet another blow, their livelihoods crumbling. One might expect a leader to reconsider, to seek a way to end such calamities. But the narrative consistently tells us that Pharaoh remained as stubborn as before. His heart had grown no softer. The mounting losses, the erosion of his kingdom's prosperity, did not persuade him to release the Israelites. Each plague was a clear demonstration of a power far exceeding his own. Yet his defiance seemed only to solidify, pushing Egypt closer to further despair. The plagues continued their relentless escalation. From the chaos of wild animals to the economic ruin of dying livestock, the suffering now became intensely personal. The sixth plague brought direct physical torment to the Egyptian people. It began with a dramatic symbolic act. Moses, following divine instruction, took handfuls of soot, fine ash from a furnace. In the very sight of Pharaoh, he cast this soot towards the sky. It dispersed, carried by the wind, a dark portent of the agony to come, and then it began, boils. Not a simple irritation, but really bad sores, erupting on the skin of the Egyptians. This was an affliction that no one could ignore, no one could escape. The nature of this suffering was profound. Imagine painful, festering boils breaking out all over your body. The scriptures describe them as grievous, causing intense discomfort. The itching, the burning, the throbbing pain would have been constant. Movement itself became an ordeal. Simple, everyday tasks, walking, working, even resting, would have been agonizing. This plague was democratic in its reach. It afflicted everyone. Man and beast, those animals that had somehow survived the earlier pestilence, now suffered alongside their human masters. There was no hiding from this wave of pain, no remedy that could offer true relief. The land of Egypt became a land of shared misery. The societal impact was crippling. A population racked with such painful sores could not function normally. Workers could not attend to their duties, farmers could not tend their fields, soldiers could not bear their armor. Even Pharaoh's own magicians, who had earlier attempted to match their powers against Moses, were struck down. The scriptures tell us they could not stand before Moses because of the boils. Their magical arts were powerless against this divine judgment. Their bodies were as vulnerable as any commoners. This was a humiliation for them, and a stark message to Pharaoh about the source of true power. Their sophisticated knowledge and rituals provided no shield against this pervasive agony. Yet, what of Pharaoh? He witnessed this widespread suffering. He saw his own skilled magicians incapacitated, their bodies covered in these terrible sores. Surely this direct and personal affliction upon his people, upon his trusted advisors, would move him. Would it not break his unyielding will? But the story reveals a consistent pattern. Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. The cries of pain from his subjects, the visible evidence of a power that could strike so intimately, did not sway his resolve. His defiance seemed to grow with each escalating plague, pushing his nation further into the depths of suffering, a testament to a will that refused to bend, no matter the cost to his own people. Let us consider Pharaoh's stance through these three specific trials. First, the wild animals. They brought terror and disruption into every corner of Egyptian life, shattering peace and safety. Pharaoh saw this. Then came the pestilence on the livestock. This plague struck at the economic heart of his mighty kingdom, decimating their wealth and their means of survival. Pharaoh knew this. Finally, the painful boils. This affliction brought physical agony to his people, incapacitating them, even his own magicians. Pharaoh witnessed this suffering firsthand. Yet through it all, his response was unwavering. He refused to submit. He refused to let the Israelites go. His resolve, or perhaps his blindness, held firm against a rising tide of disaster. What could be the source of such profound, such costly stubbornness? Was it purely human pride? The ingrained arrogance of an absolute monarch, accustomed to unquestioned authority, unwilling to yield to the demands of a subjugated people or their unseen god? Or was there, as the ancient narratives suggest, a more complex dynamic at play, a divine hardening of Pharaoh's heart, a deliberate act by God to demonstrate his power more fully, to make his name known not just in Egypt, but throughout the world? The story suggests an interplay of human will and divine purpose. Regardless of the ultimate cause, Pharaoh's choices had devastating consequences, leading his entire nation deeper into crisis with each refusal. These ancient events, chronicled with such vivid detail, offer us timeless lessons about leadership and resilience. Pharaoh's leadership in this context became a study in defiance against overwhelming evidence, a path that led only to escalating suffering for his people. True resilience, we learn, is not merely about enduring hardship. It is also about possessing the wisdom and humility to recognize when a change of course is necessary, when old beliefs must be re-examined. Pharaoh's story stands as a stark cautionary tale. It speaks of the dangers of unchecked power, the perils of a leader who becomes deaf to reason and blind to the welfare of those they govern. The plagues of Egypt and the unyielding heart of Pharaoh are far more than just a dramatic historical account. They resonate through the ages. They speak to us about the enduring struggle between oppression and freedom. They explore the profound mysteries of power, both human and divine. They challenge us to consider our own responses when faced with overwhelming circumstances, with truths that challenge our own comfortable realities. Do we choose to harden our hearts, to cling to our own will despite the cost? Or do we seek understanding, humility, and a path towards a greater good? The echoes of this story continue to teach us about faith, consequence, and the inexorable unfolding of a purpose that transcends even the mightiest of earthly rulers.